first thing for me as a former Treasury Minister, also as a constituency MP, is I know people have been worrying so much about their energy costs and the energy bills and the cost of living. So I'm really glad that the first thing Liz Truss has done as Prime Minister is already make a big announcement about helping people with the cost of energy through the winter. And then today we've had the announcement on support for businesses, which will be a huge... Businesses will be breathing a huge sigh of relief. Think about that and knowing that they're going to get help through the winter with the energy costs.
Are you worried about how it's going to be paid for?
Oh, well, of course, and you were just asking me about Friday. So what I'm looking forward to seeing on Friday is the Chancellor setting out his plans for economic growth. That's a really big part of his agenda, about our new Prime Minister's agenda. Really, really important to the country. We've been through such difficult times. We still are in difficult times. But the best way through anything we know is for economic growth. That's the best thing for everybody. That's how we get higher wages, job opportunities, goes through into people having more money to spend, better standards of living.
It looks like we're going to get some tax cuts. Some of them, of course, have been spoken about previously. Stamp duty is another that's been floated in the papers today. Is now the right time to cut taxes, given high inflation?
It's a good question. I would say on inflation, clearly we do have high inflation right now, but looking ahead, and the Bank of England is expecting for inflation to come down, expecting energy prices to come down, which is particularly driving that, and we've got the support with the cost of energy, which will help through the winter on that. And then, in 2 years out, Bank of England is expecting inflation to come back down to around about 2%. And there's clearly a balance. The government doesn't want to do things that drive inflation, but we also have a recessionary risk at the moment, and we don't want to see that kind of economic slowdown. We want to see, instead of that, we want to see growth. So this is exactly the job for the Chancellor.
But you accept that tax cuts could fuel inflation?
Well, actually, I think, one of the benefits of the decisive action taken by the Prime Minister and Chancellor on energy is that will help control inflation, and clearly controlling inflation.
But on tax cuts, it is, like the IFS, for example, says that, it could increase inflation.
Well, as I said, the remit of the Bank of England and its independence is to take steps through their policies to control inflation, and they'll just set out what they're saying about inflation at the moment. And I think we do have against that the risk of some concern about recession and the importance of economic growth. So I think actually I think this is a really, really positive agenda, which I'm looking forward to getting behind.
I'm keen to ask about fairness as well. If you look at some of the policies that we're seeing from Liz Truss, stamp duty cuts, corporation tax being lower than planned, scrapping the cap on bankers' bonuses, is this a government that looks like it's just on the side of the wealthy?
Well, the first thing I'd say on that is actually if you look back over the last few months, going back to around about this time last year, last winter, there has been substantial support put in to help people on lower incomes.
This is before Liz Truss was Prime Minister, though, isn't
it?
But
it's all still, it's worth looking at it in the round, because these things are continuing. So, for instance, the support that was announced before the summer recess, I was involved in the Treasury in developing that package, which is £1,200 to households on lower incomes, extra help for pensioners, extra £150 for people with disabilities going out today.
I'm looking forward at what the new Prime Minister is doing, that these are the policies that she wants to do: stamp duty cut, corporation tax cuts, or cancelling rises, scrapping caps on bankers' bonuses. It's a valid question. How does it work?
Well, but I was just coming to that. I'd say, do look at it in the round, that those steps have been taken particularly to help those on lower incomes. And in fact, some of the tax cuts that have happened over the last year, for instance, the universal credit taper change, essentially a tax cut to those on lower incomes. So those things have already happened. But clearly the way that Liz Truss as Prime Minister, Kwasi as Chancellor, are looking at this is then really focusing on economic growth as being the way that they increase the size of the pie. So overall, rather than just saying, well, this is the size of the UK economy, and how do we redistribute that amongst people, to say, well, actually, let's look at how we can invest and how we can increase the size of the UK economy, and that will be good for everybody.
You obviously backed Rishi Sunak in the leadership election. You're sitting here basically because you can do what you want now. You don't have, you're not part of the government any longer. Do you think you were punished by backing the wrong horse?
I don't see that at all. I mean, what I do see is looking at the cabinet that Liz Truss has brought together, and really talented people, many of my good friends, very capable people.
The vast majority of them who backed her for the leadership.
In that cabinet. Well, I mean, it is a normal thing that somebody who becomes a leader has people who are loyal to them, who've helped them on their journey there. Around them. I completely understand that. But also, really talented colleagues. There's real diversity, but people who are there because of their merit, not because of particularly their background. I think that's a real strength of Liz's government.
And are you enjoying your newfound freedom?
So far, so good.
OK, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks
Helen
very
Whately
much.
there.